thank you for being here. This is amazing. Good time. Thank you for being here on a Sunday.
Yeah.
We understand you had several options and flights, and we appreciate the fact that you're here with us in this.
Yeah.
In our humble abode. Now, I've been to. Anybody here been to SAC Gamers Expo? A few, several in Sacramento. I've been there a few times, but I think this is your first time kind of in the Sacramento area in the first place, right?
Yeah, for me, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Ever been to Sacramento ever?
No. I mean, like a lot of people, I'll land in the airport of San Francisco. Is that close? I have no idea. Yeah, okay.
A couple hours.
Okay, yeah. So I've been to that airport on my way to somewhere else, but yeah. But I'm happy to be here, actually. We're doing a 2-week road trip. So basically...
being him, not me.
Yeah, and my buddy Scott back there. And so we hopped in a car in Seattle. We drove down to Medford, and then we went to Reno for a couple days, and now we're here in Sacramento, and then we're going to go over to Eureka over in California, and then kind of drive up the Oregon coast for the rest of next week. So it's going to be pretty fun.
That's a lot of planning. And this doesn't seem like something that you would plan.
No, I absolutely did not.
As far as
my wife,
schedule,
Rebecca did actually. Otherwise, I would just drive straight to Mexico and probably Argentina, and I just it would not be pretty. So.
What are your top 3 games in terms of the metal soundtrack of the game?
Oh boy.
Wait, what?
Metal soundtrack, like the 3 video games that have like the most metal soundtrack. You like the games?
Yeah,
great
Brutal
soundtrack.
Legend. Obviously, that's the number one. The fact that he was able to get all of those bands on one soundtrack was kind of amazing. So Brutal Legend is cool, but also I love Grand Theft Auto Vice City and that 80s soundtrack in there. Oh my God.
That radio.
That's speaking to my heart right there. Yeah, that was absolutely amazing. I'm trying to think of some other one. I picked up a couple games at this show actually that were kind of metal based. And so I forget the names of them, but there are 2 games. I'll show them in the video because I hadn't heard of either of them. And they're all kind of music, metal specific. So. But,
oh, sure.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Is there a game that has like some 80s metal that we should be looking out for?
Vice City. I mean, it's this.
Vice City's the one, huh?
Yeah, they must have spent so much money on that because I mean not only just the metal side but the pop side. I mean, isn't Michael Jackson and all that stuff in that? It's crazy. It must have cost them so much money.
I mean, some of the ones, especially the imports, like again going back to the PC Engine, but like the Turbo Duo, PC Engine Duo. There's like Lords of Thunder, Gates of Thunder. Some of those have like awesome soundtracks.
The Guilty Gear series always has a really good soundtrack, and that reminds me that there is a Saturn. A pinball game called Necronomicon, right? But basically it has John Petrucci of the guitarist from Dream Theater did the music for it. Oh, and also also God of War 2 had a bunch of really cool again not 80s, but the Dream Theater had an exclusive song on there. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, there is Brian May, guitarist for Queen, did the title song at least, but he was also involved with the music for the legendary fighter Rise of the Robots. Unfortunately,
really,
it was in Rise of the Robots.
Yeah,
but it was like right on the title. It was like soundtrack by Brian May, and you listen. Cool. You can pull it. You don't have. Please don't play the game. However, at least on YouTube, look up just the opening sequence. The graphics look pretty cool. It looks, but during the opening sequence, you're like, that's 100% Brian May. Of course it is. Yeah, but unfortunately, it's in Rise of the Robots. So
okay.
What's your favorite fighting game?
You're asking the wrong dude. I wish Reggie was sitting right here.
Yeah, Reggie's the fighting dude.
Reggie would talk your ear off. I mean, I know it's kind of lame, but I do really like Soul Calibur. Especially on the Dreamcast. I just, with the weapons and the over-the-top characters and stuff, I really, whenever my Dreamcast is set up and I'm messing around with that, I will play that game. I do love it. So it's a fighting game.
It was the first game I played on the Switch too. Was on the GameCube.
Yeah, that's cool. So I don't know if that's a good answer or not because Reggie would tell.
Give you a whole panel just on that.
I know. I had this question yesterday, and it totally blanked on me. I know,
because so much of it, there's so many games that come. Like you look at the Switch eShop, and there's new games like every day, and not just the hentai ones. I mean, there's there's so many.
I mean, you bookmark those.
Yeah.
You don't buy them.
It's almost hard to keep up anymore. And it's almost like movie trailers anymore, where it's like, oh yeah, I forgot that came out.
I mean, the new
of course,
Metroid,
the Donkey Kong, right?
Metroid 4 has been on my radar for years. I don't know when that's coming out, but I'm ready.
Right, I know. There's so many. They all just kind of blend together anymore.
I'd have to think of like a direct or something like that I saw, or.
See, and that Expedition 33 just kind of came out of me on nowhere. It's like, this
right.
looks pretty cool. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's my new favorite game.
I've heard people say
it's
that's
so
like
good,
game
dude.
of the year.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Yep. But that was one I didn't even hear was coming out, or I didn't hear any hype. And I also don't really watch, like, I don't watch the Jeff Knightley, trailer fest or whatever.
Fest, yeah.
I'm cool with that. I'm just like, I'll see the trailers when they pop up, and when something else does come around.
I mean, there is a new Silent Hill game coming out, right?
Yep. So
Silent
I'm down
Hill
for that.
F or something like that, or am I thinking? Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint like the one, like definitely Metroid Prime 4 for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Will be a must. But outside of that, I'm almost like I just wait for it to come out first, and then I'm like, oh, cool, I'll check that out. And then Plucky Squire was one of them where it's just like, sure, I'll check it out. It's like it was my favorite game last year. So
yeah,
and I'm not just saying that because they sent me a free T-shirt, but I mean.
What game system do you play the least, and what's the best game for that system?
Oh,
the game system I play the least.
The best game for the system you play the least. So it has to be a system that you do play sometimes.
Yes.
I can't just say the Gizmondo, which I just have in my closet, and
You have a Gizmondo. Wow.
I have two of them. Yeah.
Really? Huh.
Why not? Anybody know about the Gizmondo? Anybody?
Yeah.
The Ferrari crash and the Swedish Mafia and all that. You don't have that?
That is such a
Yeah,
weird system.
yeah. The gummy thing. Oh, yes, you
Okay.
should. I wouldn't say. Let's see. So the system we play the least, it doesn't have to be the worst system. It's just the one you play the least. And the system I play the least currently.
I mean, over the years, that's really tough to play.
It's a good question.
It's a great question because because often when I'm working on a video, I will dive headfirst and and just be all in on it for several weeks because I capture all the footage. Over the years, the system that I probably played the least is like the PC Engine, some Japanese console. Like I don't even own technically a PC Engine. I own the TurboGrafx 16, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's a lame answer or not, but I never owned one back in the day. And so when I finally got one,
so you have no nostalgia for it.
Yeah, I have no nostalgia for it. But Galactic Attack is such a great shooter on that system, and I believe it's exclusive for that. So
probably.
Yeah, so that would be my answer. Is that anytime the TurboGrafx 16 is plugged in and I'm playing it, that's my game. Yeah.
I do like TurboGrafx 16 quite a bit.
Like
I was that kid on the block.
You had one.
That kid in middle school at my time. Yeah, I was the only one I knew who had one. I loved it.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of an answer for myself too, but
I mean, yeah.
the
Gizmondo would have like Tomb Raider. Didn't it have?
It has it has great graphics and everything, great gameplay. It's just weird.
Yeah.
I think its most notable title, like unique to it.
Oh.
Is a game called Sticky
It's Sticky Balls.
Oh, Sticky Balls. Yeah.
Yeah.
And isn't there?
It's the number one seller.
Isn't there an Elder Scrolls game on it? Or no? Am I thinking of
that? May have been
Engage.
Engage.
Okay.
Yeah, that would have been
That would be a
Engage.
good answer too.
Yeah.
I have an Engage, but it doesn't work.
You still have one though.
I still have one.
Yeah. I know somebody who just made a new game for the Engage. Like, there's a
Oh,
lot of homebrew makers out there, and he was
Yeah.
like, "I think I could do one for Engage," and he did.
Who
I was
was
like,
the audience for that? Like 5 dudes? I mean,
I think so. I think he sold enough to
Yeah.
cover the cost of whatever he was working
Wow.
on. So
So weird.
one friend who is nostalgic for the Engage, and I'm like,
The taco. Yeah.
I look at him like, okay, are you just messing with
Yep.
me? And he looks me dead in the eyes like, oh, you're serious.
yep.
Yeah.
Everyone's known to be that one guy who has the one thing.
Because the Engage is so weird. You had to change the game. Didn't you have to pop out the battery of the phone? Yeah, in the first version of it.
The
Yeah.
original model, like the battery is obstructing the actual
Game cartridge.
Game cartridge, like they're like SD cards.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
And it's like,
Yep.
So weird. And again, you had to use it as
Yep.
a
yeah.
sideways taco or something. It was bizarre.
What are your more bizarre or interesting encounters while collecting?
Of just finding games, or just things that you would find, or the people
whether
you.
It's like, whether it's like finding games. Or
Okay.
It's like something interesting that you found after.
So,
Yeah. I mean, your hat's pretty interesting. I don't know.
so the first thing that came to mind was somebody asked me yesterday, what is the worst, I think, game store or game hunting experience I'd ever had. And in the Seattle area, it's not open anymore.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yes. So
Legendary.
we have 22 retro gaming stores in the Seattle area, about a half an hour, around. There's a lot. And there was one store that was so terrible They were horrible.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it.
No, it was bad.
I loved it.
It was bad because you go in there, first
It
of all.
was a dump. I loved it.
It was a total dump. The people in there, I think they hated not only each other, but they hated the employees, they hated the customers, they hated everybody.
Yeah, they bickering all the time.
Awkward.
Oh, it was so good. It could have been a sitcom.
It could, yeah, I know. I wish I would have been able to film it. They, oh man, how do I say that? And it was just a total dump. It was everything, and actually there was more games stacked up behind the counter than there were actually on the floor. Because they were the only place in town in this part of Federal Way, essentially, if you're familiar with the area.
Yeah.
That they got everything for years and years, and they would never process it. And
they wouldn't let you go back there to look through it.
Because that's where all the good stuff was.
Right.
So,
I can see that game.
Yeah.
Sell me that. Oh,
my gosh.
Yeah.
And the husband and wife would bicker, and there was no music, and so it was dead silent, and they hated each other. And you're sitting there listening to oh my God, she's gonna kill him. You know what I mean? It's like it was so bizarre. Yeah.
They wouldn't let you take pictures inside. Wouldn't let you film.
I'd love to film it.
I would have loved to have. But I respect that. If it says no filming, I respect that. But
they weren't part of the community either. Because they had all this crap in there, right? All this cool stuff, and I was like, you should take this down to Portland one day, and to like an expo and selling them. They had no interest in anything. It
weren't in the Facebook groups. It was
they were just angry all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, right? Well,
I found a cheap copy of Silhouette Mirage for the PS1. So
I got Gotcha
I can't
Force
hate
on the GameCube for $35, and if you know that game, that's like a $400 game now. It's like, but that's few and far between.
Yeah, legendary.
After leaving Sierra, did you ever think about working at any other game after that?
Yes.
Oh, good question.
Yeah, yes. Although, to be honest, the reason why I left Sierra originally is because so many of my friends were leaving Sierra making more money at other companies. That was really the issue. So for instance, my wife left Sierra and went on to Real Networks at the time, which was doing streaming video. It was there, and then Bo,
the Real Player, right?
and then a friend of mine, Bo, went to Boeing and made double the amount of money. So at the time, a lot of tech companies were poaching people from our industry and essentially just making more money outside of games. That said, I did when I got laid off after 9/11, and I was unemployed for about a year or so, and so I went to school for audio production, and I did I did side work for like casino, like those slot games, like a friend of ours, she needed sound effects and music for a slot machine game that was going to be in Vegas, and so I did.
That's fun.
Yeah, it was a very interesting experience. At the time, I thought, I'll just run my own recording studio in my house, and found out that, boy, that's hard to do too. So, but anyways, and so to answer your question, absolutely. And I've thought too, if Nintendo or somebody, Xbox came to me and they wanted me to do social media or audio or something, I mean, I'd seriously consider it. Obviously, we know lots of people who work at those companies. They continue to truck along, but video games is a tough business. It's very hit driven, and
very fickle.
It's very much like the movie industry, right? You can pour millions of dollars and not make a dime, and that's why you see layoffs and stuff all the time. So it's not for everybody, for sure.
It's almost kind of seasonal work.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. That makes sense.
Like and just because you had a hit with one game doesn't guarantee your next one is going to be a hit, and you've spent 3 years of your life on it, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, or it gets a bad review or something like that, or
many
has a
games
bug, and that sort of stuff. So,
I was curious if you had any interactions around Lori and Corey Cole.
not until recently, really. So we had a big Sierra reunion. I guess it was last year, and so they were there, and that was a pretty cool experience because the organizers were able to pull a lot of those people into one spot and kind of have them hang out and stuff. And a little bit of behind the scenes is that when Sierra crashed and burned, there was a lot of resentment all around. It was an ugly situation, and a lot of it was public. So this isn't really any news necessarily, but there was some hurt feelings, and because people poured their lives and souls into this and passions into Sierra, and when it crashed and burned, they just were not happy. A lot of people, I'm not just saying the Coles, but just a lot of the developers that were at Sierra. And it was spread out throughout the world. So pretty much most of it was up in the Seattle area, but also in I believe in Eugene, Oregon, is where Dynamics and a couple of other people were. So, the long story short is that it was cool last year for a lot of them to kind of like get together for the first time in decades and kind of also see the passion that the gamers had, because they'd forgotten or they weren't really aware of it. They'd gone on with their lives. A lot of them moved over to Bungie or Valve, some of these other companies, but they didn't realize that there was a hardcore group of people out there that were like yourself, that were really passionate about those old games and cared. They didn't know that. So that was a really cool moment for them. So I hope to see more of that. As a matter of fact, it may happen sooner than you think. So all I would say is that if you are interested in going to Portland Retro Gaming Expo, you might do that this year.
I watched the video. Reggie mentioned it. I think it was just a passing comment. He was talking about the future, like digital only future. He says that once it happens, I don't know. I don't want to quote him exactly. I don't want to misquote him, but he said like he may not get like a next gen if it's like
Sure.
only.
Sure.
What are you guys' thoughts on that? Do you think that's something that?
Well, I mean, I'm not happy about it, obviously, because I believe that video games are art, and these people who create them are artists often, and so I feel like it's worth preserving, and so that's my number one goal with that sort of stuff, is that I do want games to, and be able to play them, and not just the game itself, but also the artwork and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
That said, the PC has long given up that, right? Like if you own a Steam Deck or a PC, you're buying digital games, and people are fine with it because Valve's not going anywhere, so they're comfortable with that idea, right? That you pay for it, and also Steam sales make it feel less. It's not, I don't know how many people pay $80 for a PC game, but it's nice to know that the Steam sale's coming up twice a year, and you can get it maybe for half off, right? So that makes that a little less painful. I own a Switch 2, and I own one of them's a code, because that's the only option that he had,
right.
And so it's not my favorite way to do that, but I will continue to. I also bought a copy of Cyberpunk 2077. It's my third copy of that game, but I wanted to support the fact that they put the game on the cartridge, and it's a good game anyways. I like it, and it runs really well on the Switch. So honestly, I'm taking kind of a wait and see. I don't know if you saw the news recently where they showed how all the third-party developers for the Switch are not happy with their sales, except for Cyberpunk. And so it could be that
they're going to take notice.
They're going to take notice and put the games on. And to be honest, charge me $5 more if that's what it takes, or what. You know what I mean? Again, I don't want to do that, but if the issue is cost for putting that on there for the disc or the little card, then I think it's worth it for those people who care.
Right. Maybe there'll be other consoles, like the Evercade is still a very physical cartridge-based thing. And even if they all go all digital, the next platform, like Switch 3, Xbox Series 248, whatever they're going to call it, whatever comes out next, right behind you, we already have 50 years worth of video games to collect for. So there's not going to be any lack of collecting. It just won't be for the newer stuff. So we'll see. Yeah.
With the cartridge versus I'm going to emulate this on my PC and hack it to have wide.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, me personally, I definitely land on the spectrum, if you know what I mean. But we really have. I do both. I capture footage using the flat screen and the emulation. I use a Mister for all my for all the footage I capture. But yeah, I mean, that's just for some reason looking at like an old NES game through a CRT. Like one example I come up with is I love the game Air Fortress for the NES. Anybody? Air Fortress for the NES. It plays fine. But it's like microwaving leftovers at that point. It's like it's good, but it's good. But when I play it on a CRT, like the light, like the stars twinkle, which they don't do on a flat screen, just because that's how the game was coded for a CRT with the scan lines and everything. So I miss some of that with the flat screen. So I do, like when I'm going to play a game because I want to play the game, I'll play it on my CRT. But if I'm just capturing footage for the sake of putting it in a YouTube video, I'm not really playing it to enjoy it. I'm playing it just to capture my own footage, so I'm not getting striked or anything or getting anything like that.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because my buddy Scott is with me here, and he's never been to a retro gaming convention ever, and he's sort of it was interesting because he went over to the free-to-play area over there, and and it was really it's funny because he put in an old copy of Ken Griffey Jr. Baseball, and because he loves that game as a kid, and he was playing it, and he's like, did it really look this bad? You know, like he didn't remember it looking that way, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, it's doing composite yellow to, you know, it was really interesting. And also he went over to the N64 playing Super Mario 64. And again, he's like, oh, this looks terrible, you know? Because his memory is that it looked great.
Yeah.
And
nostalgia goggles.
And I was like, well, you could get and I went down the rabbit hole of like, well, you can get an upscaler, blah, 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 and all this. And you can see his eyes glazing. He's like, I just
it's a lot of extra work for...
Yeah, for sure. So me personally, I do love playing on original hardware when possible, especially for me, it's just the controller. Like, you know, I mean, a lot of times you remember holding whatever controller that was, no matter how good or bad it was, you know, the N64 or the, you know, GameCube. I love that controller.
Right.
You know, when I hold that, I'm like, okay, this is a GameCube game. You know what I mean? So,
True.
In my setup, I do have it where pretty much every system does have an HDMI solution. Again, because I do so much YouTube and everything is 1080p or 4K, I do want it to look the best, and so I have options in my house. I also have a fairly large CRT as well, so I can play light gun games and things like that. So
nice. I'm jealous.
Yeah.
Where would you recommend to get started or advice on homebrewing? To get started with homebrew stuff?
Oh, sure. There are still a few of us out there who make new games for these older systems. We were talking about Engage earlier. I have a table out there, and I brought some of my NES games that I made in the past. Just recently made one for Sega Genesis as well. But fortunately, there's not many of us, but there's also no competition. We're all in it together because we all want all these things. The reason why so many of our Kickstarters are funded is because we're all funding everyone else's Kickstarters. So it's just it's a circle of all of us. And then sometimes it kind of moves on from there too. Mega Cat Studios famously kind of started out doing what was considered homebrews, but now they're a legit studio who, again, going back to YouTube as well, they love the retro stuff. But man, it's the top shelf. It's the Five Nights at Freddy's, you know, the pit or whatever they call that. Those are the ones that make the money, and they use that money to fund their retro stuff because they're such big fans there. If you're looking at just NES, yes, there's NES Maker that they claim doesn't use, you don't need to use any code. And once you kind of go through the tutorials, you're like, oh, I can do that. But then you kind of accidentally learn how to code along the way. So NES Maker is a great way to start, at least for NES. So you don't have to learn assembly just for a thing. But also, depending on the console too, a lot of it goes through its own programming. We had the same question when I did a panel once with Nintendo. I don't know if you know Nintendo at all, but he also he came from game development before he did a YouTube channel, and he made a game called Carl, which is amazing. Going to be physical on Switch soon. Looking forward to it. Not a game card or anything, or key card or whatever, game key, whatever they call it. And he said the same thing too, where it's like if you're looking at making a game to just be, and you see it all the time with the Switch eShop, it looks like these games are just kind of thrown together, and they probably are, but they're making money from them, and it's a legit video game. And he said both Game Maker Studios and even through Unity, there's so much help and support out there for free that will kind of show you and teach you along the way, and other people want to help others, saying, happens a lot with the NES games too, like the NES games, where you want the gravity to happen a certain way, and there'll be someone else who's like, "Oh, here, just copy and paste this code in there." And so again, there's a lot of help out there if you want to start making your own NES games. I started out just being a hack, and I would literally just hack NES games until thinking like Frankenstein's monster, where it's like, well, if I hack enough of this, that, and the other, eventually it'll just be its own thing, at the end of the day. So I started doing, and Toby Fox was the same way. He made the Halloween hack of Earthbound, and then that's when they were like, oh, no, you can't use that. And he was like, okay, well, I'll just make my own game. And then that's where Undertale came from, so it all starts with just, for me, it was just hacking games until I got to a point, especially with my YouTube channel. It's like, I don't know if I want Nintendo to know that I'm doing this.
Right, yeah.
When I was a little bit more on the down low of everything, and then I became a Nintendo brand ambassador, I was like, they know, they have to have seen that I hack video games. I better stop doing this.
The other thing, too, is you could go,
That's Gabbo.
Oh, he's probably telling us it's 5 minutes.
Yeah.
There's also developers here and also at other expos as well. So, for instance, back there you have Larry Kitchen, who famously made a ton of great games on the Atari. And,
sure. Yeah,
and
David Crane's over there.
Yeah, and they're thinking about moving into Super Nintendo stuff. So, And they're very smart guys, very nice. So go talk to them as well. And the other
absolutely.
developers that you run into at expos, they're happy to give you advice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a couple of other people who do like they just make their own game, and that's kind of where it starts. These are small little independent studios.
Yeah.
A lot of like modern day YouTubers or retro gaming fans in general will kind of cite you guys as inspiration. What got you guys into YouTube back in the day?
Yeah, it could start with me because I think it trickles down to you because my and you can look back on the videos on this too. Also, huge shout out Cake Hoarder in the audience. I mean, he's just chilling, incognito. Channel's doing extremely well. You have a game store opening soon, and are we going to see? Are you doing a video here while you're here as well? All right. Better believe it. Cool. No, my inspirations were I was saying if you look back at the first times we ever did videos together, doing like I think it was like NES hidden gems or Famicom hidden gems or Super Famicom or something.
Nice.
At the end of
they
his
know
video,
better than us.
he's been, Jason's been super supportive on also uplifting other up and coming creators, and you see that a lot with his most recent video too, where like, hey, let's ask this question, but let's get these other people to answer these questions too.
Yeah, I've had 72 different creators on my channel over the years, which is fairly unusual. Most people don't do that. I love doing that. I think it's fun.
My first, and it always at the end of the video, it's always like, hey, where can we find you?
Yeah.
I was just like, I think I'm on Instagram because at the time I didn't have a YouTube channel. I was just hanging out. So it was after a while where you finally said, you could do your own channel. Mm-hmm. I was like, but you do all the editing. I don't want to. I just want to talk about video games.
Part,
yeah. So then I started my own channel from there. So of course, Metal Jesus Rock's channel, huge inspiration for me to start my own channel. And then my style of video is maybe a little bit more like GameSack, where it's just like, hey, here's who I am, and here's a bunch of video games all at once. And I was like, I could do that all day. So and my editing style, again, working in radio, I'm our audio producer. I produce a lot of local radio commercials. My editing, my YouTube editing style is also is the same as my audio editing style, where it's like I just remove the breaks, jump, let the video do the let the gameplay do the talking for the most part. Although I do a lot of talking for the most part too. So
no,
I like the sound of my own voice. So.
For me, I mean, I definitely love the Angry Video Game Nerd and just all the stuff that he does. It's amazing. It's funny though because I really love his movie ones though. I think are fantastic. When he in October when he talks about all the scary movies or the bad movies, I love all that stuff. And in person, James is just such a sweet guy. We always talk about metal music, because he's a musician. So super cool dude. But also too, I was really inspired by other people who were doing pickups videos at the time because I was getting into collecting and I wanted to learn more about video games and the Genesis and the TurboGrafx 16 and all that stuff. And so just kind of watching other people and see how I could potentially make my content fit into that. I have a little bit of a background in audio production, so I went to the University of Washington for audio production, and so I was able to, and in that I also learned video editing as well. So I was able to kind of see how other people were doing videos, and I was like, I can do what they're doing and put my own spin on it. So that's kind of where that comes from.
Did your wife really flush down the toilet?
Flush.
ET down the toilet?
Oh, that's right.
Did you flush ET down the toilet?
Yeah.
You.
That's right. Remember, because we filmed out in our backyard of pulling out of the sewer. God, what video was that?
That was when you got mold in your house.
Oh.
The answer is probably no.
I don't think so.
It wouldn't even get past the initial plumbing.
God,
it was just for joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. It's like going to a Star Trek convention asking William Shatner. So in episode 7 of
William Shatner doesn't.
Yeah. But I've done too many videos since then, for sure. Yeah. That's funny. I'll have to go back and rewatch that.
I do like ET though.
Yeah.
You guys have been doing this for a while. For retro gaming topics on YouTube, I've noticed a change from kind of here's a review on this game, or here's some games I like, or here's some hidden gems, to the focus is more now like reselling or value. And I was wondering what your guys' opinions on that was.
Yeah.
I don't pay attention to that. You're basically talking about channels that are all about game hunting, reselling, building up large collections that way.
Yeah. Sure,
yeah.
And that's and that's probably because those were where their views are coming from. Because and Pixel Game Squad and Retro Liberty, they used to do retro reviews and stuff like that. But if no one was watching, and I love hidden gems, of course. But if I did a video today, which I could, you never know. I love the game Mindle Palace on NES, and people would say, never heard of it, don't care, move along. But they'll watch a video about Castlevania because they love Castlevania. They want to hear someone else talk about their favorite game. So it's hard to get into that, which is why it's nice to do a collection. But if they're finding that's where their views are coming from, is doing these pickup videos and doing these estate sales and finds and the flea markets they have in California, and not just them, but also with Phoenix Resale and with Retro Rick and the other ones who are doing that, perfect. And then if that's what YouTube is rewarding, then they're like, well, why would I do a different video if that's what YouTube is telling me that's what the people want?
Yeah, that's interesting because, I mean, I'm not surprised that those videos are popular because video games are expensive, they're hard to find, and, collectible, right? And so people are, how do I get a big game collection, or how do I get this game that I really, really want? And so those videos will help those people do that. It's not, I mean, but I'm not a reseller. You can ask my wife.
Yeah. At what point is it hoarding, really?
Yeah, I know, right?
You have a library, but...
I do give a lot of stuff away, however...
That's true.
I do. But yeah, it's not something for me. I wouldn't necessarily want to do those things, but I understand why people watch those videos for sure.
I think that they like to live vicariously through them. Where, we don't have flea markets in the Northwest, really.
Yeah, because the weather... It's hard to.
Right, yeah.
There, so,
it might be raining any given Saturday anyway.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely.
So people can't leave the house.
I saw in your last video you were doing, it's kind of like a question in terms of like what games you play the least. You had a lot of different creators on there.
Oh, yeah.
How often do you work with Digital Foundry?
John?
Yeah, John
Lineman.
Yeah, I love that dude. Actually, I met him in person down at E3 in Los Angeles, the last E3, which was in 2019.
Yep.
We all met up in a bar and hung out. And so that was the first time I ever kind of really met him. And we were both fans of each other's stuff at that time. And so we hung out so to answer your question, I don't really know him other than I basically just DM'd him, was like, hey dude, I'd love to have you in one of these, because I know he loves retro and doesn't get to do it all the time. So I was like, hey man, if you want to be in this video, please do so. So that's how that happened. But he's extremely busy with Digital Foundry, as you can imagine. They crank out a lot of really cool stuff. So yeah.
Well, that's what's nice too, is because there are a lot of creators out there who do Switch content, or they like Wood is one of them, beat 'em ups. There's a friend of mine who does VR content, who's a Gamertag VR from the UK. And they love retro gaming. They absolutely adore it. They absolutely love it. But man, it does not do any views on their channel. Right. So it gives them a chance to actually talk about it for the first time. They're like, I love the fact that you're doing this.
Yeah, YouTube's weird that way because they really want you to create a specific type of video. Like even Wood is a great example of that, because I've chatted with him.
He's pivoted.
Yeah, because he's in the past wanted to do more variety, but he's so known as the Switch guy. And anytime he does even anything beyond that, the views, it just tanks. And it's not because the video is bad. It's just simply that YouTube puts that video in front of an audience that goes, I don't care about that. And so it doesn't recommend it as much.
RG85 is kind of the same way, because he always says he's not a Switch YouTuber, but
that's where the views come from.
Yeah. But you notice that for me, from the very beginning, I've tried to do a little of everything. And that's for that reason, frankly, just because as a creator, I just kind of want to do everything. I don't want to necessarily have to just be stuck with one particular thing, even though YouTube will reward that. But creatively, I like to do travel videos. I like to do hidden gems. I like to do pickups videos. I like to do all this stuff. And I just kind of roll with the punches. I just, over time, I've found that YouTube, even if a video doesn't necessarily get a lot of views the first week, and I've mentioned this before, my number one video right now is an iPod video that I did back in November. Yeah, right? Yeah. And back in November of 2 years ago or something like that. On a Tuesday, I bought the last iPod that Apple was putting out. I thought they might cancel this. Put out a video, and it's probably 4 million views right now. And it continues to be my number one video going forward. But it bombed, because my audience didn't care about it when I released it. It did terribly.
But it found a new audience,
But it finds a new audience over the time and stuff like that. Yeah. So YouTube's a really weird beast in that way.
Well, that's good for your channel too, because you could have had a very successful PC gaming channel, but the burnout would have come so quickly that you wouldn't be here today.
Yeah, absolutely, because I like doing travel videos.
So it's a variety, right?
Yeah, variety for sure. So
keeps it unique, keeps it interesting.
It does.
Yep.
Would you ever revive gamer eats?
Yeah, it's funny.
You get that question
I
every
get that-
time.
I know.
Every single
So
panel.
This actually plays into that. So, I used to do a bunch of Gamer Eats episodes, which are really fun to make, and they're a blast, right?
Yep.
Hanging out with Paul, making food, being stupid, and and they're great. They're really fun to edit as well, But like kind of what we're talking about, they bomb on my channel hugely, to the point where, and they're a ton of work, and I would love to do more of them. But it is very disheartening when you put all that work in and it gets no views and it just kind of dies, right? So in some ways, you'd almost have to create a second channel and build an audience specifically about that topic.
Sure.
And that way, that audience, whenever it showed up on that Friday, they always watched it, and then YouTube would promote that. So that's the way you'd have to kind of do that.
It'd be a great idea for Drunken Master Paul to have it on his channel.
Yeah.
But again, he's also so busy with his cookie business, and
I know, and he works on cars and all this sort of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, he's all over the place. Yeah.
Maybe a Gamer Eats Live one of these times, like a
We've
Portland
thought
Expo
about
or
that.
something. And
Yeah, we've thought about doing
that be the
Gamer
panel.
Eats Live. Yeah, although
Yeah.
it would go horribly wrong, I'm sure.
Yeah,
You don't want me
fire
cooking
detect-
live.
the
Yeah,
sprinkler system going. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys were talking about how YouTube can kind of shoehorn you into a specific niche once you've established it. I was curious, do you guys have any personal hobbies that you're passionate about that you'd love to do a video on, but you feel like you can't?
Oh, for me, it's a VR. I love VR, but every time I would do a VR video, nobody cared. So I was just like, well, I'll just keep it to myself then. As much as I still want to throw in a VR video every once in a while. But I learned with YouTube early because my channel kind of plateaued for a while until I got out of that funk. Was like I would do a great like Nintendo. I'm going to rank all these Nintendo games. Cool. I'm going to fix all these broken video games. Cool. I'm going to do a VR video, and then like nobody would watch it. And then the next time I do a Nintendo video, the people who were watching it, my video wouldn't show up on their homepage because they didn't click on the VR video. So it's like, okay, I better just, as much as I love it, I would love to do a travel vlog where I just hit up the different restaurants inside airports or something. But it's like, that would 100% be a second channel,
I'd love to cover music more on my channel because as passionate about video games as I am, I'm also passionate about music. I listen to a lot of music, both old and new. I'm always buying records, old and new. The problem, of course, is that you can't play any of the music on YouTube. It's so annoying.
True.
And I even reached out to them a while back. I'm like, is there a way that we could buy in to as a creator to play like 30 seconds? You know what I mean? It's if I could play 30 seconds, it's not like it stole the. You know what I mean?
Right.
No one's not going to buy the album
Sure.
if I did that, right?
Yeah.
And they just can't make it work because the record labels have such a hold on it. They want you to license it for movies and television, and it's so high, it doesn't make any sense. So music would be really fun to do. I could talk an awful lot about that. That'd be great. Also, cars would be kind of cool too. You know, I know a lot of people who own really fun cars. That'd be pretty cool to do.
Oh, that's not bad. You talk about video games on your channel. You get gifted video games. Talk about cars.
I want a new Ferrari.
I know. Yeah. Boy, I sure love those new Ferraris. I wish I had one in my garage right now. And
it's funny though, because I mentioned Scott works at a Porsche dealer. I was like, dude, you guys should sponsor my trip. Come on.
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Ferrari for the trip.
Yeah.
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 And with that, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. You're awesome. Let's do before we head out. Let's do a quick selfie.
Yeah.
And we both have a table right by the Game Tower tent. So if you have more questions or whatever later on this afternoon, we'll be here today. So we'll chill. We'll hang out.